Is that part of the reason for these sort of regional differences that you're seeing in terms of traditions that people have?
Most definitely, and I can tell you this, in the 2000 census, just based on the percentage of people who mail back their form, Minnesota was at the top of all 50 states. Iowa and Minnesota, in general, the upper Midwest had very high response. And very pleased about that, and I think that's part of it, is the sense of civic participation, civic pride, the activism to make sure that your community is receiving everything that it's due. And I think that's all a big part of it. That's not to say that there aren't pockets even within the city of St. Paul, pockets within the city of Minneapolis, where that participation was not as high. When that happens, when we actually have to hire census takers and knock on doors, we have found, and this is based on studies we've done, that the information is sometimes not as accurate. When people are not as cooperative by sending their form back in, there's a good chance they may not be as cooperative when a census taker comes to their door. We want to overcome that barrier. I think that's the goal, is to kind of knock down that barrier or that resistance to cooperate.
Is that just a question of trust? Have you actually, have you actually done studies to find out why people don't necessarily give correct information?
There are a variety of reasons. In my mind, trust is one of the major factors. It's the old adage, I'm from the government, trust me.
Yeah.
I can say that all day long, and people won't acknowledge that. Part of our goal is to have truly trusted individuals in the community talk about the census and talk about the importance of the census and encourage their constituents, the people that live in their communities, to participate. And those are the kind of partners that are going to help us to bring those response rates up, to bring that cooperation up in the areas where we haven't had as much cooperation in the past.
Let's talk a little bit about some motivating factors here too. There is a great deal that's at stake because of the representative nature of our government and the formulas that are used as a result of the census. What gets determined as a result of the count that occurs?
At the very basic level, the number of seats in the United States Congress for each state is determined based on the population of that state. So December 31st, 2010, we turn over the population counts by state to the president. Based on those numbers, the number of seats in the Congress are redivided. And it's assured that some states are going to lose, some states are going to gain, depending on how fast or how much they've changed between now and 2000. And that's a huge thing right there. But even more importantly, within those states, within every state, those districts are going to be recarved based on the population shifts within the state. So the representation, whether or not you win or lose a congressional seat, each state is going to be redivided, and the congressional districts themselves will be determined based on the population for each area. And that holds true at the state level with the state legislative districts, at the city level with the council districts. It could affect school districts, utility districts, and all of those types of jurisdictions. So there's quite a bit at stake at every level. So no one's exempt.
So this is really the sort of the base level data that most representative districts have for how they determine who they speak with. If at least it's sort of a multi-jurisdictional district. Obviously, it's not going to change directly the borders in the city of St. Paul.
Right.
But the population, say for example, the population levels within the city actually might change how you apportion a city council.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
So there's that sort of ripple effect all through most all stages of government.
Most definitely. And the goal obviously is to make sure that I have an equal voice in running my government as you have. And that's really what the basis is. Each council district is roughly the same population, that they are carrying the same weight as the next council district. And that's what it's all about.
Now, the government also typically derives funding formulas based upon census data, correct?
Most definitely. There are some direct funding formulas that are based strictly on population, and that amounts to about $300 billion per year. Just that chunk of our budget each year is a direct funding formula based on population alone, no other factors included. And then there are literally millions of other dollars distributed based on need, based on language need, based on children need, youth need, senior
income
needs.
rates,
exactly.
That sort of thing. So actually having a sense of what the median income is, or alternatively the distribution of poverty within a district, actually determines certain types of funding formulas.
Most definitely.
And not just at the federal level, but also at the state level.
Most definitely.
And then I've actually run across this as well. This data is then used sometimes by private funders to try to determine how they're marshaling their resources.
Most definitely. And in fact, most businesses you rely heavily on census data for their marketing, for their distribution, for all of the planning that they have for the future. And it's not just government that uses it, obviously. Everyone is tied into it. Faith-based organizations, churches, rely heavily on census data for their evangelism and outreach programs, and also to assess the needs of the community they serve. So this reaches into everyone's home, obviously, not only to fill the form, but the results of the census will reach into everyone's home at some point.
And I guess the other thing that's true as well is that over the course of time, you've got a sense of historical trends that occur within a community. So you can be comparing directly what happened in 2000 versus 2010, or longer term trends in terms of looking at growth, change, industrial development, a whole host of different types of analytical patterns that are available.
Most definitely, and over time the census has become the moving portrait of our country, without a question. That's how we've tracked how our country has grown, how our country has changed, the demographics, and certainly the last 10 to 20 years have shown a dramatic change in the makeup of our country, and that will continue, and the census is the way to measure that change.
We just have a few minutes left before we leave people here, Dennis. As people are preparing for 2010, what are the things that they should be thinking about?
Well, first of all, the message that it's important needs to be embedded. That's something that they need to talk about, that they need to understand, that they need to talk to their neighbors about. If they belong to an organization or a business that has communication vehicles, newsletters or websites or other vehicles, how can they use that to make sure that other people understand how important the census is? The organizations they belong to, how can they get the word out through those organizations, through meetings or other types of communication vehicles? Those are some of the things to think about. Certainly the very basic thing they can do is when the census form comes a year from now, fill it out and send it back in. We want organizations also to look at their advertising. Is there any way they can tie their product or their service to the community in with the census product and service? And how can they be related? Also jobs. We will have jobs, currently not looking for many people, but over the course of the next year we'll be looking for lots of people. We'll be looking for thousands in the metropolitan area alone. And we're hoping that people from the community step up. That's what the census is made up of, people from the local community who are interested in making sure their community is counted right, and they can be a part of that.
Let's remind people about the websites where they can go to for more information. The overall federal website for the census is census.gov, census.gov. And then if you want more information about what's going on here in Minnesota, it's mn2010.org. For information about efforts going on within Minnesota. Dennis Johnson, I really want to thank you for taking the time to join our viewers here at SPNN, and I really want to wish you well here as you guys start this mammoth undertaking over the course of the next 18 months.
We guys and thousands of partners across the area.
Dennis Johnson is the Regional Director with the U.S. Census based in Kansas City. Thank you for joining us here at the St.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Mike.
And for everyone here at SPNN, I'm Mike Wassenaar. Thanks for watching this edition of the St. Paul Forum.